I've lived in several different prefectures in Japan, and one in particular, I lived in a Leo Palace apartment next to an elementary school. And it wasn't a particularly old school, but just your standard elementary school. And sometimes late at night, if I wasn't sleeping or really had anything to do the next day, I would go down to the vending machine that was only a couple yards down the street and I would get a beer. And yes, those exist in Japan. That's a thing. And I would just sit outside my apartment building and just stare at the school that was just across the little two-way street, but the street was as wide for one car, so that's also a thing here. Um, so as I'm watching this school, and there's just something eerie about a school at night, and part of it is the green glow from the emergency exit signs that creeps through the windows, as if the school is somewhat alive and still watching you. And then every now and then, just as the wind would die down, that's when I would hear something. Soft laughter, giggling, like children hiding in the darkness, playing hide and seek long after the world had gone to bed. I had my suspicions on what it was, but I never saw anything. It was only noises. And so I moved away, not because of that, but I moved up to Tohoku, and now I'm in this old abandoned house where I do these broadcasts. And there's something about old houses in the mountains. The air gets thick up here in Tohoku. It's hot, humid, and just heavy enough to make the walls breathe. This place, this house in particular, has been quiet for years. But I hear things while I'm up here. Sliding doors that creak open on their own, tiny footsteps, a laugh, just for a moment, coming from the tatami room downstairs. Last night, I left out some sweets. Just a little plate of manju. And then I came back up here later, and it was gone. No crumbs, no wrappers, no signs of animals. Just the scent of sandalwood and dust. So, this particular thing is called a zashiki warashi. It's a childlike spirit, playful and mischievous. And if it takes a liking to you, then you can expect good fortune. But it can also, if it doesn't like you and it just bolts, then misfortune isn't far behind. Contrary to popular belief, not all yokai are evil spirits. There are some non-malevolent ones, such as the Zashiki Warashi. They're pretty harmless. They like to play tricks, and I'm hoping that the sliding doors, the creaking floorboards, the other random noises that will make your hair stand on end, I hope those are the result of it playing tricks on me, just being mischievous, and not the evil, malevolent ones that I have been suspecting that live here. But the Zashiki Warashi, they're just spirits of children that haunt old homes or places that meant something to them in life. So I understand that I start these off dark. And because of today's much brighter topic, I thought I could give you a little story of a yokai, of a spirit that isn't so scary or evil. Thought I'd try to fit the tone. So, anyway, today or tonight, depending where you live, I'm broadcasting from a suspiciously warm, possibly haunted, room in the Tohoku Mountains. I'm still using the same radio setup that is running off of equipment worse than what Onada Hiro had used when he finally surrendered in 1974. Today, we're going to talk about anime. Nah, we're not going to talk about the shows, specifically, not the plots or my favorite ones or anything like that, but the culture, the advertising, the pilgrimages, the way it seeps into every corner of Japanese daily life. Going to a konbini and seeing posters and these characters on your coffee cans, to even at the city office. It's everywhere in Japan. Not just for a particular group of people. I went to high school in the late 90s, early 2000s. And that's when anime was kind of introduced. A little earlier than that, but it was starting to get its feet going there. And I remember seeing, various people wearing Dragon Ball Z t-shirts, or they had, folders or something. And usually the Dragon Ball Z was the most popular one. There might be some Sailor Moon or some other ones. And I don't remember very much at that time because I was not into anime in high school. I didn't have a disdain for it or anything, but it just wasn't my thing at the time. And but the group of people that liked it generally were the outcasts, social pariahs. And there were, of course, exceptions. There's always exceptions. And I will talk about some of those exceptions later. So I remember seeing people that were into this, and they would get made fun of by other students. And so at that time, only some people of a particular group liked it. It wasn't as widespread as it is now. And that kind of painted a picture of what a lot of people, or how a lot of people saw this thing that was not American. And I wasn't into it, and I knew nothing about it. I could recognize it, but that was it. And a little while later, a friend of mine, he watched it. And after football practice, I would drive him home, or in some case, like, I would end up at his house, and we'd be hanging out, um, and it would come on. It would be on TV, and he watched it, and I would I would sit there watching it with him, and it looked interesting. And if I remember correctly, now this was a super long time ago, um, if you are familiar with Dragon Ball Z, I think it was during the Buu saga, maybe Kid Buu, and it looked fun, but I was not going out of my way to watch it. I still had other things I wanted to watch, like the Britney Spears "Baby One More Time" music video over and over and over again. Um, so So I watched it with him. I liked it. Didn't do it on my own. And then a few years later, I met some other people, and they were able to kind of really push me into the anime sphere. And one friend, he got me into some of the other anime like Trigun. That was one of my firsts. And then another group who actually went to the same high school as me, um, but were 2 years younger. Um, they got me further into it with what they were watching. They had watched Dragon Ball, um, and then they got me watching other ones, like His and Hers, Circumstances, Fruits Basket, Naruto, Bleach, um, and so I was able to get into this. Now that group of friends there, um, actually, before I even get into that, what's funny is because of that is how I ended up in Japan. Because of all the anime watching, I got into the culture of Japan. Like I was able to see the culture through the lens of anime, and then I started doing my own research into Japanese culture and history, and I'm a big history guy. I probably know more than your history teacher. And so watching all of this anime got me, ended up having me go to Japan. So that's rather funny. But I always have to explain more of that because if I just say anime got me into Japan, if I leave it at that, then it it's not the whole picture and it gives you the wrong idea. So, but that group of friends, as they went to the same high school, they were athletes. Now, I didn't hang out with them in high school. I knew who they were, but they weren't part of my friends group. And the one guy he played baseball. The one guy I played football with. There was another guy I played football with. Um, and then one of them was a cheerleader, and they had their own friends group, and they were into anime, um, and they got me into it, and they would not be your stereotypical anime geeks of that era because they were athletes. They were, I don't want to say super popular, but they were not your stereotypical anime geeks. So, yeah, they introduced me to a brand, like a whole variety of them, and not just the typical shonen like Dragon Ball Z. Now, while anime was gaining popularity in America, there was still this idea of who liked it, and it wasn't entirely wrong. And when I went to university, the people who were the most open about it were, the same people you would expect it to be. And so that kind of stuck with me, and it didn't bother me. I didn't really care. Um, and it wasn't until I went to Japan to study abroad. That was when I fully realized that it was just more than just a group of people who watched it, because again, I was ignorant of the time, and they I had no idea just how big this was in Japan, because even when we hear of places like Akihabara, that's the basically the anime district, and you always see the stereotypical type of people who go there. And so when I went to Japan to study abroad at a university, I, of course, I was able to get my hands on some Japanese figures, pretty cheap, and I had them on my desk, and I stayed in this international dormitory, and so sometimes I'd have people come over, and it wasn't a party or anything. The room was barely bigger than a restroom stall, And so I would have some friends come over, and some of them were girls, and they would they knew the characters, and that caught me off guard because these girls were not the typical like nerdy type girls, and so they knew these characters, and they said that they watched the shows, and I was surprised by that, and that just showed my own ignorance of maybe even a culture shock of how different it is in the West and the East. In Japan, everybody watches it. Whether you're a child, whether you are a popular student or an adult with kids or an old man or old person, rather. Um, while in the West, it's just groups of people. Now, not so much now. Now it's pretty much everywhere. But at that time, there was still, in the West, it was still just certain groups. So, so I was surprised to see that. And then I was also seeing them use anime characters everywhere. Like I'd go to a kombini and they would have characters from Shingeki no Kyojin or Evangelion, on the doors or coffee cans or whatever else. And that was just part of their promotions and of something like maybe a movie was coming out or the new season was coming out. Um, and like even like right now, Demon Slayer's huge, and the first movie of the Infinity Castle arc has just released, and everywhere you go, there's places are promoting it, and the Family Marts they have posters, and some of their products have some of the characters on them, and some of the Family Marts even have merchandise that you can uh, gamble in trying to get. Um, you buy this little you get this little card and you take it to the register, um, and they scan it, and it'll cost maybe like 700 yen or something, and then you get to draw something from a box, and so you pull it from the box and you peel back the flap, and it will reveal what you win. And there's a variety of products, and each one has a letter. And so like this right now it's like from A to H. And you are able to get what that letter is on your little card. And the A are these figures, these nice looking figures that you can get from a store that would cost maybe, well, have a lot more than 700 yen. And they, so they're doing this now because of the new movie. And you go to the movie theaters, everything is decked out in Kimetsu no Yaiba or Demon Slayer, and like it's amazing. But they wouldn't do that in America, not even with American cartoons. I would love to see them do that with like like an animated Transformers movie, or like an animated Ninja Turtles or Ghostbusters movie. And but they wouldn't do that. They barely do it with live action movies. And so I find it amazing that they do this. And and it's not even just on the small scale. Well, I use that for lack of a better term. Uh, the small scale of the kombinis, but a lot of places will use anime aesthetic characters on their promotions. Like you go to the city office, you'll have those types of characters that they use. Um, but on planes, they will have anime characters on planes. You can see Pikachu on some planes. Um, I think they've had Dragon Ball characters on planes. I did see myself was the Kimetsu no Yaiba characters on the side of a plane when my wife and I came back from, I don't remember where we were coming back from, but we were at the airport. We just landed at Narita, and I saw one of the planes that had Tanjiro on the side of it. So yeah, it's everywhere, and it just amazes me that Japan embraces that. And I'm kind of wondering, like, why can't America, for example, do that? Is it just because cartoons are considered childish? They don't have to do it with anime because it's not their thing, but why don't they embrace the animation that like Japan does? And even some of the theaters, going back to the theaters, some of their highest grossing films are anime. Like right now, the Infinity Arc is making tons of money, and theaters are selling out. I haven't seen it yet, and I plan to go in a couple of days, and so I'm kind of worried about getting a ticket. Um, so it's fully embraced here in every part of life, and it's amazing. They even get some of the actors, the voice actors, the seiyu. They'll have them on TV shows as guests, and then they will narrate something using the voice of the character that they're famous for or they're most recently doing. So I I would find it interesting if America could do the same thing. I know they won't, but it would be interesting if they could. And one big thing that people do when they come to Japan, and if they're into anime, are the pilgrimages. And am I saying that right? Because it just sounds weird when I say it out loud. And I do it myself, not just with anime, but I also do it with Super Sentai stuff as well. They film, the Super Sentai or Kamen Rider, or as you would call it, Power Rangers. That's what Super Sentai is in America. They they film in the Kanto region. So right now I'm broadcasting from the Tohoku region, and they film mostly in Kanto and around anywhere, mostly Tokyo, but they go into Chiba, they go into Saitama, and so I've traveled around Kanto region for a while, a few times, and the first time I did it, and I this was purely by accident because I had gone there for another reason. I went to Saitama, and I went to Tokorozawa, and I was going there because that is where the Juon house is, and the Juon, if you're not familiar with it, is The Grudge. They remade it in America back in 2004 using Sarah Michelle Gellar, or Buffy, um, as the lead role, and so she, or I'm sorry, so they filmed that movie um, using a house in Tokorozawa, and me being a fan of the Ju-on series, I wanted to go see the house, and some people have. There's a lot of people have done this before, and it's also why they put up security cameras nearby. They're fine with you going there to take pictures of the house, but just don't break anything. So I found it, and it's not easy to find either. And so I took a few pictures of it, and I decided to explore more of the area. And in nearby, there's actually a bridge, um, a walkway bridge, not like a street bridge. And a lot of bridges in Japan are like these walkway bridges, are just bypass, so that people can get across the. I think this one is for railroad tracks. Um, it's just so that you can get over highways and railroad tracks easier without having to wait for a green light or something. And so this one was going over railroad tracks, and as soon as I saw it, I recognized it. But it was the same walkway bridge from the second Ju-on movie. Um, if you see Ju-on, you would understand what I'm talking about. If you haven't, you obviously don't care. So I didn't realize that the bridge was that close to the house. So I walked around the area, and I went over to this big park, and I spotted this amphitheater, and as soon as I saw the mural in the back of part of the amphitheater, I immediately knew what had gone on here. And this was area that was often used to film Sentai. And if you've only watched Power Rangers, you will know this place as the area where Jason, Kimberly, and Zach fought King Sphinx. And so that is a very distinct mural. All right, so easily recognizable. And so, of course, I took a few pictures of it, discovered it completely by accident. Um, and so I like to do that with Sentai. And I will do it with anime too. I also have done it with um, Lucky Star. That one's also a fun one. Um, I went to the shrine that is in the opening credits of the anime. Um, so if you're familiar with Lucky Star, the character Kagami, she is walking away from this shrine, and there that is a real shrine in Washinomiya. Is that the area's name? The creator of Lucky Star is actually from the that particular area. So Sate, I think, is where he's from, and they they use a lot of real places in anime. So Lucky Star does the same thing, and other people will go to other all kinds of other places um, like for anime such as like Your Name. Um, there's a certain set of stairs. I'm not sure where exactly. But Kamakura for Slam Dunk is a big one. That one causes a lot of problems for the locals because a lot of tourists go there. And I mean, aside from it being part of the Slam Dunk, um, there's a connection there. Aside from that, it's also a very nice scene because you have the train passing by and you got uh, Tokyo Bay right behind it. So it's a very nice spot to take pictures. But it's also from Slam Dunk, so a lot of fans will go there to take pictures, and it causes a lot of problems because you get a lot of people standing in the streets and blocking traffic, and yeah, very mendokse. And another one is in Chiba City. Um, I never remember because it's a long title. This title is one of those 2 month long titles. But this one's like Yahari Ore no Seishun. Wait, Yahari Ore no Seishun. Is that it? I don't really have much reason to say the title because I'm the only one in my family who's watched it. Um, but they filmed in Chiba City, and so they've gone to Chiba Port Tower. Their high school is based on Inage High School, um, and they ride the Keisei line. No, they don't. The Keio line, not Keisei, it's Keio. And so if you're from Chiba City or familiar with Chiba City, you can easily spot those areas that they use in the anime. And they even on the monorail. Chiba is famous for the monorail. And a few years ago they had the characters of the from the anime on the side of the monorail, and even when they were announcing the stops, they changed it to the voice actors. And so you would have um, I think her name was Yukino. I haven't watched the anime in a long time, so I forget their names. I think Yukino is the main girl. You would have her, and then the other more colorful girl. I can't remember her name. Maybe I should do some research for these things. Um, they would announce the stops, and I didn't do this on purpose. I actually know where the character of Yukino lives. I know which apartment building that they used for her because I'm familiar with the Makohari area, which is also where they filmed Super Sentai. And there's only so many towering mansions in Makuhari, and this one was a little distinct. So it's easy to find. Um, so uh, a lot of people, going back to my original point, they will travel around Japan looking for these spots. Some are a little harder to find, uh, and like there's some anime I want to try to go to, or places that they used in anime that I want to go to. Claned is one of them. If you enjoy, hurting yourself and crying a lot, watch Claned and Claned After Story. Um, and um, His and Hers Circumstances is another one I want to try to find. But that's on the west side of Tokyo, if I'm not mistaken. Um, and so, yeah, they're fun to do. Those are fun to do. Just traveling around looking for the real life places or the places that inspired them. So it's quite interesting as anime has become like this big world thing. And even when you can see it when Akira Toriyama died, fans all around the world pay their respects in their own ways. Whether it be like the small drawing pictures of him or his characters to going to say like soccer games, and you would have the fans singing the Dragon Ball theme song, and they'd be holding pictures of Goku up, or even athletes doing poses from Dragon Ball. Um, I mean, even in American football, they did a lot of players when they would score a touchdown. Some of their celebrations were anime related, and so it's quite amazing to see it so widespread and reaching places you would never. I Back when I was in high school, I never would have thought that these types of things would reach the places that they've reached now. It is amazing that they do that. And but coming back to Japan, it's more than entertainment. It's identity, it's nostalgia, marketing, and and tourism. And it's woven into everyday life. And students will talk about it. Salarymen, business people, they watch it. They have anime phone charms on their bags. Um, but even if you come to Japan and you're not into anime, you will be exposed to it in some way or another. Uh, Whether it be you going to the Kombini and you're seeing these popular characters all over the place, and you will end up knowing these characters, through, what do they call it? Osmosis, is that it? And whether you like it or not, you will know these characters. And so that's what I wanted to talk about today. And as I've mentioned several times, it is amazing to see anime go from this niche particular group in the late 90s, and now it's everywhere. Doesn't matter who it is. Everybody likes it. Well, and I use that term loosely, but it's very, very popular by comparison. And then you come to Japan, and it's just a normal, everyday thing that everybody likes. It's part of, it's connected, it connects everything in Japan. Probably better than the damn trains that run here. And if you're listening to this and you're not into anime, well, first of all, what's wrong with you? Because anime isn't just for kids, as some people mistakenly believe, but there's anime for everything. And if you actually look at all the different types of anime, you will realize that it's not. There's a lot that's not for kids. Kimetsu no Yaiba. My kids watch it and they like it, but they are scared of the demons. Um, Shingeki no Kyojin, definitely not for kids. But definitely watch something. Whatever you're into, they have it. And a lot of people, like I mentioned earlier, when they do their pilgrimages, their anime pilgrimages, that still sounds weird for me to say. There is part of that they like to do is like there's something special about standing in those places that it feels like it connects you to the anime that you like you feel this connection. And you also, so not only do you have the physical representation of being in those places and you get that connection, but even you watching anime, you feel like you can get an understanding of Japanese culture. Um, and I'm not talking about every single anime, of course, but like there's a lot of things that you can learn about Japanese culture through the normal, everyday, the slice of life, maybe the Nichijo type of anime, um, such as the main character. If the anime is about a high school, or if the setting's in high school, then the main character is always sitting next to the window in the very back. Um, I don't know why that's a thing. Um, Although I will say, if you see a character running late for something, they will usually have bread in their mouth. I don't know why they do that because that is not a thing in Japan. Walking and eating is considered bad manners, but they have it in anime. So you would think that that's a thing that they do here. But I can assure you that there is something for you in anime. There always is. And because it's for anyone. You come to Japan, you see at the different types of people who watch it. From the children to the high school students, not just the geeky ones, but the very popular athletic ones, the both boys and girls, the gyarus, they watch it. And to the parents raising children, to old people, living alone in their houses, they watch it too. Everybody watches it. And and they even make a family thing out of it. Years ago, I went to Nara to visit a friend, and it was during her Seijinski, her coming of age. So I went to go visit her, and I stayed with her and her parents, and for a couple of days, and that Sunday morning, we're sitting around the table eating breakfast, and they got anime on the TV, and they're watching One Piece. I think that's what they were watching. I know what One Piece is. I don't watch it myself, but I think I'm trying to remember if that's what they were watching. Um, so yeah, families will have their family time, is watching some anime, and it's it's just fascinating that it just reaches all over Japan the way that it does, and it's not just one group of people watching it. And so there's something special about it. Not just the plot, not just the characters, but the way that it connects to the country. And I'm not going to say that's what makes Japan better than America, or America better than Japan. I'm not going to say that, but it definitely it's it's actually hard to describe because you would have to witness it yourself, but the anime here isn't just something you watch. It's the way people live here. It's something people live. Because here in Japan, anime isn't hidden in basements. It walks the streets. It lights the skyline, and it stares at you from vending machines. And maybe that's why it's powerful here. Because somewhere in the spaces between ink and electricity, between 2D and 3D, between truth and illusion, it becomes real.